Chapter 21. How did you like breakfast? Alicia heard Marta chuckling outside the locked basement door. Nearly an hour had passed since she'd discovered the dead canary. She'd placed it, dish and all, in a bin she'd found in the corner of the basement. "Come on, Alicia," the gloating voice called again. "Talk to your sister. I can't decide what to fix you for lunch. Maybe you can give me some ideas. You must be getting hungry." The sound of Marta's laughter drifted down the stairs. "Answer me, Alicia." Marta's voice had gotten meaner. "Tell me what you want for lunch. Unless you want me to use my imagination." Sitting in a corner of the basement, Alicia rested her head in her hands. She wished Marta would just go away and leave her alone. "Alicia," Marta screeched. When there was no reply, she kicked the door hard. Then Alicia heard the sound of her footsteps clumping angrily away. Funny how Marta's footsteps are so loud and clumsy so often, yet when she wants to she can glide across the floor without making a sound, she thought. Well, she left me alone, so I got my wish, I suppose, Alicia thought to herself. Giving in to despair wouldn't do anything for her. She had to keep calm, keep thinking clearly, and figure a way out of this. A grim smile spread across her face. Why am I kidding myself? There's no way out of here. The basement windows are boarded shut. The only way to get free is to get past the maniac who wants to kill me. It's impossible. "Don't believe it," whispered a small, faint voice inside her head. Alicia sighed. Okay, she wouldn't give up, or believe that it was impossible to get out of here. But first, she had to find a way to calm down, to quiet the terror that screamed inside and threatened to destroy her sanity. Resolutely, Alicia rose to her feet and began walking around the basement. There wasn't much there but junk. No basement tool shop that might have contained something to use to defend herself against Marta. No gardening tools were stored down here either. What I wouldn't give for a hoe or a rake, Alicia thought. As she walked, it occurred to her that Marta might even have been planning this for days. It would have given her time to clean out anything that could have been used as a weapon. After her third circuit of the basement, Alicia was convinced that Marta had done just that. Nothing had been left to chance. Wearily, she sat down again. Lying on the floor next to her was a roll of paper, the kind used to line drawers and shelves. She picked it up and tore off a piece. Digging into her pocket, she fished out a pen and began to scribble on it, doodling absently. If only I could draw an open window and crawl through it, she thought, remembering a cartoon she'd seen somewhere. Soon the doodles became more intricate designs. Gradually, she felt excitement building. Then it was as if a switch had been thrown and light flooded her mind. Hurriedly, she made a few more marks on the paper. Then she jumped to her feet. There was a pile of old newspapers in one corner of the basement. She grabbed several of them and placed them at her feet. Then she tore off another sheet of shelf paper and put it on top. "Now," she said to herself as she sat down, "I'll begin to really draw." First, she sketched the trash bin and pile of newspapers in one corner. Then she sketched the basement steps. And then she tried something different. A self-portrait from memory. Time flew by as Alicia drew. She forgot her bruises and her hunger in her excitement. Even when hours later Marta stood screaming outside the basement door, she didn't hear her. She was totally consumed by what she was doing. She didn't know how long she kept making drawings, but when she finally stopped, there was a pile of them strewn around her on the basement floor. Alicia flexed her right hand. It ached from holding the pen, which was beginning to run out of ink. Her legs were getting stiff. Slowly, she got to her feet and flexed her ankles several times to get the blood flowing through them again. Suddenly, something in one of the corners caught her eye. It was some kind of sack, stuffed behind some broken wooden chairs. The corner was so dark that she could hardly make out the shape of it. "It's not a sack, it's a leather bag of some sort," she realized. Alicia stared at it, her brain beginning to tingle. She walked over to the corner and pulled the dusty black leather bag from behind the chairs. "It's a purse," she said to herself, feeling a prickle of excitement along her spine. She unzipped the purse and stuck her hand inside. She pulled out a wallet. Her heart hammering and her fingers trembling, she began examining the contents. Her chest fairly exploded as she pulled out an ID card with her picture on it. Alicia Fisher, it read, Shelbyville High School of Art and Design. Fisher, she repeated to herself. Alicia Fisher, not Alicia Taylor. Her whole body was shaking as she took out the other cards in the wallet. There was a driver's license, a library card, and another card that showed she was a member of the Jump Athletic Club. There were pictures in the wallet, too. A few of girls, and 2 of the dark-haired boy she'd seen in her dreams. Alicia clutched his picture tightly in her hand. I remember, she whispered over and over. A vision of the dark-haired boy formed in her mind. You're my boyfriend, Alicia said to herself. Your name is Lou. We've been going together for 2 years. We both like to paint. You have a motorcycle and you hate broccoli. Oh, where are you, Lou? I miss you so much. Abruptly, the image of Lou vanished and another vision flashed into her mind. She saw herself standing outside with Marta. They were children. Both of them were laughing. Another little girl ran up to them, and in her mind's eye she could see Marta's expression cloud with anger. Marta began screaming at the little girl, who ran away, crying. Then Marta had chased after Alicia. There was a rock in her hand. The scene faded, and Alicia felt a shudder run through her body. I remember that day, Marta, she said to herself. The other little girl's name was Molly, and she wanted to play with us. But you didn't like other kids to play with us. It made you angry. And when I wanted the other kids to play, it made you very angry. They thought you'd outgrow it, but you didn't. When you got older, you kept getting angrier and more jealous of anyone I wanted for a friend. You started taking it out on me, and you didn't just scream, you hit. Finally, we had to be kept apart. Then a flash of understanding blazed through her. It filled her with dread. It's true what Mark said about you, Marta. You're crazy, she whispered to herself. Alicia clenched her hands in her lap as the thought finished, and you're not my sister. Chapter 22. Marta and I were childhood friends. The memory had been so far out of reach, yet now was easily within Alicia's grasp. We pretended we were sisters. It was a game we played all the time. A veil of darkness still covered the past, but it was fading now, piece by piece. She recalled clearly how she and Marta had lived next door to each other, in another town, the name of which she couldn't place just yet. Marta and I were inseparable when we were children. Then Maria's parents moved about 50 miles away to Grimley. Our parents chauffeured us back and forth every week or so until Marta's problems got worse and worse. The visits became fewer and fewer. When we were teenagers, we visited more frequently for a while. It started when Marta was in the mental hospital. Then she got out in a few months, and for a while it seemed she was better. It didn't last. Soon Marta was violent all over again. On the cold cement floor, Alicia hugged her knees to her chest. A wave of fatigue swept over her as if remembering had drained her of energy. She fell asleep on the cold concrete floor, her drawings strewn about her. When Alicia awoke, an ashy light filtered through the gaps in the boards over the windows. She turned her head and saw 2 glittering eyes staring back at her. A scream tore from her throat as she realized that the eyes belonged to a rat that was watching her, its tail coiled neatly around its body. At the sound of her scream, the rat fled. Alicia felt a thick, soupy terror at the thought of rats crawling over her body, even biting her as she slept. She was sure she would never sleep again, but then weariness and weakness overtook her once more, and her eyes closed again. The walls of the basement faded away, and she was in the arms of the dark-haired boy. He held her close against his chest, and in her dream she could feel the hardness of his muscles under the softness of his leather jacket. When Alicia woke again, the overhead light bulb was glaring. Marta must have opened the door and turned it on again. Hesitantly, Alicia looked up the basement steps to see if she had left another offering. She hadn't. It was dark outside, that much she could see through the boarded windows. What time is it? She wondered. She was aware of a gnawing pain in her stomach and a parched feeling in her mouth. If Marta's not even going to give me anything to drink, death will come quickly, she thought. Already, she felt a kind of delirium. Painfully, she sat up and blinked as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. Where's the rat? She wondered. Then she heard something that drove all thoughts of the rat from her mind. Voices. Sorry to wake you at this time of night, but you understand why we've got to find the girl as soon as possible, a gravelly voice boomed. Alicia's heart leaped. Oh, I'm happy to help. Marta's voice dripped with sincerity. She's laying it on too thick, Alicia thought. She wanted to scream, but could hardly breathe. I'm sure you are, the rasping tones replied in exaggerated politeness. He knows something's up with her, Alicia whispered to herself with excitement. There was a roaring sound in her head. I really must ask you to let me get some sleep now. Detective. I have an important job to do tomorrow. Oh, yes, I understand completely. The masculine voice oozed with charm. I'll get right out of your way after I search the basement. Oh, come now, detective. You don't really think that's necessary. Marta's voice took on the panicky, high-pitched squeak it did when she was nervous. I can't find the key. When the detective spoke this time, he let Marta know the game was over. Don't be afraid, Marta. You're not going to be put in prison. We only want to help you. At the sound of the word help, Alicia found her voice. Help, she screamed, with all the strength she could muster. Help. Get me out of here. High answer. There was a series of heavy thumps on the basement door. The detective was breaking it down. As the door flew open, Alicia was already bounding up the stairs. Get me away from her, she gasped as she bounded through the basement door into the kitchen. When she saw the man standing beside Marta, shock sparked through her. Detective, she whispered in amazement. She was staring at the scar-faced man, private investigator, he smiled. Name's Jake Coyle. Your father hired me. The man's smile performed a miraculous transformation on his face, changing it in an instant from frightening to friendly. Beside him, Marta looked as if she'd turned off, somehow. Her expression was blank, as if she'd gone off somewhere and left her body behind. How did you find me? Alicia breathed, her heart overflowing with relief and gratitude. A friend of yours by the name of Mark. The fellow that works in the video store in town. Jake Coyle's smile disappeared. I wish he'd told the truth sooner. When I first showed him your picture, he said he'd never seen you. I told him where to get in touch with me if you turned up. I was surprised when he decided to change his story. It seems at first he thought he was protecting you. Thank goodness, Alicia said softly. I saw you in town too. I wish you weren't so good at getting away. I was running from the wrong person. Alicia was beginning to feel woozy from her burst of exertion. I should have been running from Marta. Suddenly, Alicia's mind snapped into alertness. Her gaze darted around the kitchen. She didn't see Marta. Where's Marta? Alicia said in a frightened whisper. You have to watch out for her. She's crazy. Jake gave her a reassuring smile. Don't you worry. I can handle Marta. Alicia's jaw dropped as over Jake's shoulder, the specter of Marta appeared out of nowhere. She came creeping up behind him in the eerie, silent way she had. Jake continued to smile at Alicia with quiet confidence. The words, "Look out," were barely out of her mouth when the iron skillet in Marta's hand connected with his skull. There was a sickening thud. Alicia watched in horror as he collapsed like an inflatable doll that someone had let all the air out of. Chapter 23. Alicia pressed the heel of her hand to her mouth as she saw the insane rage in Marta's eyes. It was as if there was no soul behind them. An animal-like growl erupted from her throat as she raised the skillet over her head once more. The thought went through Alicia's mind that she must be very strong to do that with one hand. Marta brought the skillet swinging down in an arc. She bent her knees, aiming for the prone body of the detective. Already running for the door, Alicia screamed, "Don't." Marta's arm jerked to a stop. She looked up at Alicia with wild, startled eyes. Suddenly, she lost interest in bashing the detective. Instead, she sent the skillet crashing into a comber and chased after Alicia. As she ran, Alicia overturned a chair in Marta's path. Marta grunted as she tripped over it. There was a hollow, metallic clang as Marta shoved the chair out of the way, and it landed against the cabinet under the sink. Alicia could hear her own breathing coming in heavy gasps as she reached for the knob on the kitchen door. Her hands were so damp with perspiration that they slipped as she tried to turn it. She heard Marta's footsteps running behind her. "I'll tear you apart," Marta screamed. Something struck a pane of glass in the kitchen doorway, shattering it. Marta had thrown a cup. Gasped Alicia as something struck her in the middle of her back. She's going to try to hit me in the head. The thought raced through her mind. A dish shattered on the wall beside the kitchen door. Alicia managed to get a grip on the knob, turned, and yanked. In a second, she ran through the doorway and into the garage. She gave silent thanks when she saw the garage door was open. Panting, she ran through it and out into the street and the inky darkness of the night. In the hushed darkness, Alicia heard the sound of Marta's running footsteps. She didn't dare imagine how close she must be. Screaming for help was impossible. It took every last bit of breath she had just to keep going. She kept running, turning the corner at the end of the block. She went past the darkened pizzeria. Gates were pulled down over the entrance. What time can it be? Alicia wondered. 11 at night? Or 3 in the morning? If I make it into town without Marta catching me, what then? If everything shut up tight, how will I find help? The headlights of an approaching car glared in her eyes, momentarily blinding her. She waved frantically, but it whizzed by. Alicia was panting, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She ran on, driven only by fear, heading toward town. Another car passed and Alicia waved again, but it didn't even slow down. We probably look insane, she thought, imagining the spectacle of her and Marta racing down the side of the highway. No more cars passed. Soon Alicia reached the town and ran through the darkened streets. The shops were all closed. The only light visible came from the streetlights. Even the carnival at the center of town was dark. It looked abandoned. Alicia ran toward it. She hoped that among the clutter of rides and booths, she would find a place to hide. Alicia struggled to keep up the pace. As she ran, she sometimes thought she actually felt Marta's breath on her neck. Finally, she reached the carnival grounds. By now, her legs were nearly collapsing under her. She managed to get behind a ticket booth and leaned against it, gasping for air. Where is Marta? She wondered warily. She knew she was there somewhere, lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. She strained her ears, listening for the sound of her footsteps. All she heard was the harsh rasping sound of her ragged breathing. Then she felt someone grab her roughly by the collar, yanking her away from the booth, pulling her along. Alicia lashed out blindly, but her hands only connected with air. She fought to keep from losing her balance as she stumbled along. Then suddenly, the carousel lights went on, and the music began to play. Chapter 24. The carousel was turning. The horses were going up and down, and the music was playing. Come on, Alicia, let's go, let's ride the horses. It was Marta calling to her. She was about 8 years old. Her dark brown hair hung in curls to her shoulders. She wore a maroon dress with white dots and a white collar. She was laughing. Just a minute. Wait. Let's wait for Cindy. I want her to come. Alicia saw herself at age 5, running away from the carousel. Her hair was cut very short, and she wore jeans and a t-shirt. I look like a little boy, she thought. I'm so small. She looked back toward the carousel where Marta was standing and saw the little girl's smile disappear. A shadow seemed to fall across her face, darkening it from within. She looked older than her years and positively menacing. No, Alicia. Come here. Why do you want Cindy to come? I wanted to be just us. But the child Alicia wasn't paying any attention. She kept on running, calling Cindy. Cindy, ride the carousel with us. Another child emerged from the crowd. She was about the same age as Alicia, with hair that was a mass of short, stiff, black curls. Alicia and the black-haired girl grabbed each other's hands and ran back toward the carousel. Come on, Cindy, it's going to start soon, Alicia said. The two of them were near the carousel now, giggling as they ran. The man running the ride had his hand on the switch, shaking his head as he waited. They were almost there. No, don't go any farther, Alicia shouted in her mind to the children. But they kept on running and Marta had picked up a rock. Alicia could see the whole scene as if it were happening before her eyes, even though it had been over 10 years ago. I don't want her to come with us, Marta shouted as Cindy climbed onto the carousel. Then everything happened in slow motion. Marta drew back her arm, and the rock struck Cindy on the shoulder, and she fell down, howling in pain. Marta ran over and started pushing Alicia, all the time crying out, "See what you made me do. See what you made me do." Alicia had started to run away from her. Marta had chased after her yelling, "Stop it. I'm sorry. Come back, Alicia, and let's play sisters." The scene flashed into Alicia's mind with a white-hot burst of clarity and was gone. The lights from the carousel went out, the horses stopped moving, and the music died. The sunshine was gone and the darkness ruled once more. The full moon bathed the deserted carnival grounds in an eerie light. Alicia's foot hit a rock as Marta pulled her along, sending sharp pains streaking through her foot and up along her leg. She lost her balance and her knee slammed hard into the ground. Marta lost her grip on Alicia's collar. In an instant, she turned around and was standing over her, reaching down toward her throat. From the look in her eyes, Alicia had no doubt that her childhood playmate had turned into someone who wanted to kill her. Chapter 25. Alicia tried to twist away, but Marta got both hands around her neck. Marta jerked her head up and banged it back onto the ground. "I'm sick of your being such an ungrateful sister." Marta hissed her words through her teeth, sounding like an angry snake. "If you want to get away from me so badly, I'll fix it so you'll get away for good." Marta began squeezing Alicia's throat, her strong fingers digging into the flesh of her neck. Fighting for air, Alicia twisted her head to one side. It relieved some of the pressure on her neck for an instant. At the same time, she bent her knees and then kicked out with both feet, catching Marta squarely in the midsection. Marta croaked as the air was knocked out of her. When she fell backward, a look of shocked surprise on her face, Alicia scrambled to her feet and began to run. She didn't get very far before Marta was upon her again. Alicia felt the hands around her neck again, tightening. "I'm going to kill you." She growled the words into Alicia's ear. Alicia struggled to pull away, but she was choking. Blackness was closing in from the edges of her vision. She felt as if she were falling into a deep, dark hole. Behind Alicia, Marta's eyes bulged with effort as she squeezed tighter and tighter. She began shaking Alicia like a rag doll. In a desperate attempt, Alicia stopped struggling and let herself go limp. Her knees buckled and she fell forward, bracing herself as she hit the ground with outstretched hands. Caught off guard, Marta lost her balance and collapsed on the ground beside Alicia with a cry of surprise. Before Alicia could get to her feet, Marta reached and grabbed her left ankle in a vice-like grip. Putting all her strength behind it, Alicia drew back her right foot and kicked out as hard as she could. There was a sharp thwack, followed by a shriek of rage and pain as she struck Marta in the knee. While Marta lay on the ground with her hands clutching her knee, Alicia managed to scramble to her feet. She propelled herself over the ground in short, choppy strides. Marta yelled after her, and Alicia knew that Marta would quickly be up and in pursuit once more, driven by the maniacal desire to kill. The carousel loomed before her. Afraid that if she tried to run around it, Marta would catch her, Alicia kept running straight on through the open gate and onto the carousel. As soon as she had taken a few steps on the wooden boards, her heart sank. Her footsteps sounded so much louder than when she ran in the dirt and grass. It would be easy for Marta to know exactly where she was. Her throat was hot and dry. She ducked behind one of the carousel animals and took several long gulps of air. She knew she had to keep moving, but she also knew she was exhausted and couldn't go on much longer. Alicia's eyes darted this way and that in the darkness. Where was Marta? She asked herself. In the split second that she asked the question, Alicia felt a hand on her arm. She heard the hiss of angry breathing and pulled away as if a hot iron had burned her. Alicia ran, again dodging the shapes of the carousel animals in the darkness. She ran with her hands groping in front of her, trying to keep from running into what she could not see. Behind her came the sound of Marta's footsteps and her labored breathing. Then there was an explosion of light and sound. Suddenly, the carousel was ablaze with light, and it moved to the eerie sound of a pump organ melody. For an instant, Alicia's eyes were blinded by the lights. When she could make out the forms around her, she gasped at what she saw. The carousel horses of her childhood were gone. They had been replaced by strange, grotesque animals painted in weird colors. Gargoyles. The gargoyles danced to the music, up and down, their bulging eyes staring sightlessly into the night. But the most frightening expression didn't belong to one of the gargoyles. It was on Marta's face. For an instant, the two girls looked at each other. Then Marta lunged at Alicia, her features twisted into a grimace, her hands reaching out like claws. Just as Marta was about to catch her, Alicia twisted to one side. Marta struck her hip on one of the gargoyles, and she shrieked in pain. At the sound of Marta's scream, Alicia stiffened. Acting blindly, she turned and lashed out at Marta and hit her hard across the shoulders. Still reeling from the shock of hitting her hip, Marta went down. Alicia heard a dull thud as Marta's head hit the boards of the carousel. Blinded by rage, Alicia prepared to hit her again. She knelt over Marta, her right hand curled in a fist, her teeth clenched together. She pulled back her arm, ready to strike. Then she realized that Marta wasn't moving. Through the sound of the blood rushing through her head, Alicia heard people running toward the carousel. The lights on the Ferris wheel and several other rides blazed on one after the other. The entire carnival grounds were flooded with light in the middle of the darkened town. The effect was frightening and weirdly festive. Alicia stood still, stunned by what was happening. Then she heard a voice that she knew was Mark's. "Alicia, are you all right?" The voice came from the direction of the Ferris wheel. Alicia ran toward it. Mark walked toward her. He was surrounded by police. "Where's Marta Taylor?" one of them asked, urgently. "She's over there," Alicia said breathlessly, indicating the carousel. "Be careful. She's crazy." "You're shivering," Mark said, embracing Alicia in his strong arms. "She's crazy," Alicia repeated, leaning against him. "She's crazy." "Don't worry," Mark said, holding her close. "The police will make sure she can't get at you." Chapter 26. When it comes to you, it seems my timing has always been off. Mark was sitting next to Alicia in the waiting room of the Grady County Hospital. She had spent the night there and been treated for her injuries. Now she awaited the arrival of her father. "It's not your timing, Mark. It's just the way things are." Alicia's voice trailed off. She glanced at Jake Coyle, who sat across from them. He cleared his throat. I'm going to go get some coffee. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Your dad should be here by then." He hauled his large frame out of the chair and lumbered away. Now only Alicia and Mark were left in the waiting room. Alicia spread out the newspaper clipping Jake had given her on the table. "Daughter of famed photojournalist Lyle Fisher, missing," screamed the headlines. Following was a story about how Lyle Fisher had been away photographing wildlife in the Amazon jungle when he received word from his daughter's school that she had failed to attend for several days after the spring vacation. The spring vacation had lasted a week, and it had taken a few days to find Lyle Fisher in the jungle. It was unknown exactly how long his daughter had been missing. There was a photograph of Lyle Fisher and his daughter, Alicia. "My mother died when I was 10. But Dad and I have always been close. He's probably been frantic." Mark nodded. "I'll bet you can't wait to see him. You know, I was talking to the librarian this morning. It seems that Marta's parents died in a car accident a few months ago. The librarian said she noticed that Marta began acting stranger and stranger after that." Alicia twisted her hands in her lap. "I guess that's what made her obsessed with the idea of having a sister. She wanted to have a family of some kind again. She was lonely. Even after everything that happened, I feel sorry for her." Mark was silent for a moment. Then he asked, "Will your father be bringing Lou with him?" "He said he would." "Are you sure everything's good between you and this Lou guy?" Mark asked, looking into her eyes. "Because if it isn't, it is. We've been going together for 2 years. He goes to the same high school I do, we have the same interests, the same sense of humor, and enough." Mark said, faking a yawn. "I'm glad you're happy. I just don't want to hear about how great the guy is." Alicia folded the clipping and put it in her pocket. "You've been a great friend, Mark. If it weren't for you, I might not even be here." Mark shook his head. "I don't think so. I'm glad that I helped Jake Coyle find you, but I think you would have found a way out no matter what." I wonder I remember exactly how it all started. It was the last day of school before spring vacation. I stayed late in the art studio, working on a painting. It wasn't coming out the way I wanted, so I decided to leave it there over the break and just work on some sketches at home. Alicia felt a chill as she relived the scene in her mind. That week, I thought I'd seen glimpses of Marta around school. Each time, though, she was gone before I could really get a look at her, so I thought I was mistaken. That night, when I went out to my car, I never suspected a thing. It was in the underpass that it happened. In my dreams, I saw it as a tunnel. Suddenly, I saw a face in the rearview mirror. The eyes were blazing, and the face was wrapped in a black scarf. It looked like a vision from a nightmare. Alicia, you're shaking. Maybe you shouldn't talk about this now. Alicia shook her head. No, it's better that I talk about it. The more I talk about it, the more the fear will go away. She took a deep breath before continuing. By the time I'd driven through the underpass, Marta had identified herself. She'd been hiding in the back seat, waiting for me. It didn't take long for me to realize that she was out of her mind, and I was really in trouble. Mark stretched his long legs out in front of him, clasped his hands behind his head, and stared up at the ceiling. I knew she was crazy. I even thought she was capable of violence. But I never imagined her stalking someone and holding them prisoner. It's really incredible. Alicia nodded. I was so scared that I drove my car right into the woods. Somehow, I got away from Marta. Someone saw me wandering by the side of the road and called an ambulance. She looked into Mark's eyes. Do you know they never even found my car? Marta must have disposed of it somehow. Isn't that creepy? Creepy, Mark said quietly. After a moment, he looked at his watch. I don't want to be around for the reunion with the boyfriend, he said, getting to his feet. Listen, take care of yourself, he said. And keep in touch. I will, Alicia said softly. She watched as Mark walked away. He looked so lonely, Alicia thought, with a pang of sadness. She hoped he wouldn't feel too bad about her. He was such a nice guy. A moment after Mark left, a young blonde girl came in. She wore a name tag that read Jana, volunteer. Are you Miss Fisher? Alicia nodded. Your father called. He had a flat tire, but he'll be here in about 10 minutes. She turned to leave, hesitated, and turned back. Do you know Mark Phillips, the guy that just left? Yes. Do you know him too? Oh, sure. Jana's blonde head nodded enthusiastically. She lowered herself into a chair beside Alicia and smiled as if they shared a secret. He's a nice guy, but such an incredible flirt. Always after every girl, laying on the charm. Do you know what he told me? He said he had a crush on me since we were kids. Really? Alicia exclaimed, feeling indignant. Then, after a moment, she laughed. So, Mark was a regular Romeo, was he? And to think she'd been feeling sorry for him. She and Jana chatted for a few minutes, then Jana left her alone to wait for her father and Lou. She kept looking at the clock as the minutes dragged by, each one seeming like an hour. She heard a deep voice. Thank goodness, you're all right. Dad, you're finally here. Alicia jumped up and hugged the tall man with the wild, shaggy head of brown and silver hair. As she hugged him, she saw Lou over her father's shoulder. In another moment, she was in Lou's arms. They embraced without a word and held each other in silence for several moments. Alicia could feel his heart beating in his chest. Being in his arms felt like a dream come true. Finally, the three of them sat down. The administration of this hospital is going to find itself in deep trouble when I get started with them, Alicia's father said gruffly. The idea that they accepted Marta's word that she was your sister without checking any identification whatsoever is outrageous. Your doctor had the nerve to whine to me that they're busy here. I know, Dad, I know, Alicia agreed. But let's not talk about it now, okay? Lou gave Alicia's hand a squeeze. You'll never know how worried I was. He looked into her eyes. I've been taking care of your canaries for you. They miss you. So do all of your friends. I miss them too, Alicia said, leaning close to Lou, but not as much as I missed you. You know, I never could believe Marta's description of me as a quiet girl who liked to stay home and do jigsaw puzzles. Alicia's father and Lou looked at each other with startled expressions and burst out laughing. I should say not, Lou said, shaking his head. After a moment, Alicia's father turned serious. "What happened to Marta?" he asked. Alicia bit her lip. She had been trying not to think too much about it, but it haunted her. "They haven't found Marta," she whispered. Chapter 27. Alicia looked out the window of the art studio at the Shelbyville High School of Art and Design. A month had passed since what she had come to refer to as the incident. Spring was in full bloom. Outside, she could see the pink and purple blossoms of the magnolia tree. Alicia wiped her brush on a cloth. She had so much work to catch up on. Several days each week she stayed late, working in the studio alone on piece after piece. Wiping her brush on a rag, Alicia stared at the canvas. The painting she was working on she called Amnesia. It was the 5th painting she had done called Amnesia. "You'll work it out, and then you'll feel all right again. You've been through a lot, but you'll put it behind you," Lou said. Alicia hoped he was right. She just couldn't imagine a time when she'd feel as she did before it all happened. "It's so quiet here," she thought. "Maybe I shouldn't have stayed so late." She listened for the sound of activity. There wasn't any. It was nearly 5 o'clock when they'd be locking the school doors. The maintenance man usually came at 4:30 to remind her they'd be closing. But this evening he didn't. Alicia felt a chill in the room. She raised her eyes and shrieked. Marta's eyes were blazing at her from the other side of the canvas. "Look at this place. It's a mess," she hissed. "Is this the way your sister taught you to keep your room?" Then she lunged at Alicia, knocking the painting to the floor. "Oopsie daisy." Alicia shrieked again. Marta was holding the carving knife in her right hand. "Don't be scared, Alicia," she said mockingly. "I was just going to fix you a sandwich." Marta slashed the painting and the canvas tore with a sick, ripping sound. Then she charged at Alicia. Too late. Alicia tried to run. Marta swung her left hand in a wide arc and landed a blow on the side of Alicia's face. Pain exploded in Alicia's head as Marta struck her on the cheekbone. She saw an explosion of lights in front of her eyes as she fell to the ground. She saw Marta's thick ankles as Marta stood over her body. Looking down at her, Marta's face twisted in a menacing grimace. Alicia saw the thin sheen of her teeth as Marta pulled her lips into a frightening grin. Then, wordlessly, she drew the knife down Alicia's arm, slashing through the fabric of her flannel shirt. Horrified, Alicia saw Marta prepare to slash again. Then she passed out. "Alicia, wake up!" "Alicia!" It was Lou's voice, she realized through a haze. "Alicia!" Lou said again. Alicia blinked and stared up at his face. She was lying on the floor of the studio, and Lou was cradling her head in his arms. Fred, the maintenance man, was with him. Alicia jerked into a sitting position. "Where has Marta gone?" "She was here. She slashed the painting. Look, she cut my shirt with a knife." Lou and Fred didn't move. They just looked at each other. "Well, do something," Alicia urged. "She'll come after me again." Lou and Fred didn't move. Then Alicia saw her painting. It was sitting on the easel unharmed. "When I came in, you were unconscious and your painting was on the floor. I picked it up. It doesn't look like it's damaged." Then Alicia looked at her arm. The sleeve of her shirt wasn't ripped. She hadn't been cut at all. Lou pulled her close for a moment. Then he looked at her solemnly. "Marta couldn't have been here, Alicia. They found her a few days after your father, and I picked you up, remember? She's in a mental hospital miles and miles from here." It was true. "I think I'm going crazy myself," Alicia murmured. "I keep thinking I see her, and it's so real." "I think I spooked you," said Fred. "I was so busy I forgot to remind you we were closing, and then when I came in I kept talking to you, but you acted like you didn't hear me. Then I came around behind the canvas and looked at you, and you started screaming." "I thought I saw Marta," Alicia said. "I imagined the whole thing." "Oh, Lou, TM losing my mind." "Shoo. That not true," Lou said gently. "You went through a terrifying experience. You're still scared, that's all. You'll get through this thing, I know you will. I believe in you." "I'm sorry I scared you," said Fred, sounding embarrassed. Your painting's okay though, so you can finish it." Alicia got to her feet and looked at the murky swirls of color. "No, I don't think I will," she said after a moment. "I think I'll start something new and different. Maybe that's a good way to start putting the whole experience behind me." I'm glad to hear you say that, Lou said, his black eyes shining as he smiled at her. In fact, I think we should go somewhere and celebrate. Great idea. Alicia smiled back at him. Holding hands, they left the studio and walked down the empty corridor toward the door. Alone in the studio, Fred stared at Alicia's painting for a moment. Abstract art, he mumbled, shaking his head. Weird. Then he shrugged and turned off the light.